Hello MBN, Shannon here from I Cook You Serve. I'm joined today with Lisa from Belief Change Therapies. So thank you for joining us today.
Hi MBN, good to see you all. Or, well, not see you, speak to you all.
So your business started in 2017. So how did you get started?
Well, I suppose like most people who are doing their own thing, a little bit of a backstory. And so I guess my business in the way it is now began in 2017. And I suppose I had a bit of a lead up to that. But ultimately, I worked in corporate for 50 years for the same company. And I guess hit for the last 5 years of that, I guess what I would describe my experience as was, well, where's the meaning in this? What's my purpose? What am I doing here? Feeling of being trapped and all that kind of stuff. But you hang in there. And that kind of really led me to doing my own personal journey, which started with I did some therapy myself. But that then led me to try some more alternative things out, and in doing that, I suppose I felt like I was exploring, because I thought, wow, there's a whole fascinating world of stuff out there, therapies, and another, and so it was more of a self-interest that I began trying these things. And at the same time, I decided I wanted to do coaching, which is the road I initially moved down, and it was just through doing that journey and obviously learning a lot more about myself and connecting with more people and enjoying that sort of one-to-one interaction and trying to sort of help people move forward. Plus the other side, exploring the spiritual stuff and dipping in and trying all sorts of weird and wonderful things, that, things started to open out in a different direction for me. And that's kind of what's led me to where I am now, I guess, which was a right turn away from coaching, but it felt right, and I know that I'm on the right path for me.
Oh, brilliant. I love that natural exploration of how your business has started. I think that's really fascinating that you've had that journey for yourself, and you're looking to provide it for others, but also you're really just exploring, and you were really open to all of the opportunities around. I think that's a massive value that all businesses need to have, like that open-mindedness. So yeah, I really like that. So
absolutely. I think we
one.
Oh, sorry, you broke up a little bit there. So yeah, and I think I don't know, an important thing is you can kind of learn about stuff and go study stuff, but then that's just like a little part of the journey. But then from there, you've got to feel your way forward from there. And that's how you can take something from being what is in effect maybe somebody else's journey, what's give you some initial input into your journey and what you're learning. But then it's kind of, taking it as, okay, well, what do I feel about this? And how am I going to move forward with this? And that's how you take something from being ordinary to extraordinary, really, and really making it your own. So it's exciting.
Wow. So Belief Change Therapy is made up of energy work and talking therapy. So how did you end up working in this way?
Well, I guess as I kind of mentioned in the previous one, it's just things started to open out in an unusual direction. I started to, when I was working with people, I started to feel things about them that they weren't necessarily telling me with their words, and so it was a tad unusual, but rather than dismiss it, I just embraced that and started to go with that. So I guess that's what started to take it down a very different direction. And actually, this might be interesting. I started, before we went into lockdown, I'd started to work on, well, we talk about elevator pitches, don't we? How can you describe your business in a very succinct way? And it's something that's, I thought, gosh, it's actually quite difficult to describe what I do. So I've been working on that before we went into lockdown. So maybe I'll just read that to you now, and then if I have any comments on that, that would be great. So this is trying to describe it in a way that maybe can make a little bit of sense. So what I got And don't worry, if there's any criticism, I don't mind, send it my way. Belief change therapy works with your mind, body and soul to bring about lasting change into your life. It works with your soul to release the beginnings of the issues that you are experiencing so that your life can flow in a more positive direction. It works with your mind to release the blocks that are preventing you from moving forward. It works with your body to kickstart a process of healing in the absence of the issues and blocks that are creating your physical ailment. So that kind of describes what I do in a what I think is hopefully an understandable way. So ultimately, whatever you're experiencing in your life, whether that's mental, emotional, physical, whether that's fibromyalgia or it's confidence, or you have an inability in the non-physical or psyche, actually that pulls through into the physical. So that's where most of my work is focused, in the non-physical, but then obviously you're engaging the person in that process and trying to relate, okay, what am I feeling here and how can you relate to that experience in your life, kind of thing.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's really good. It's really good. I really like your elevator pitch, the work, and the really specific words that you've used. I think it, from looking into your business a little bit, it really breaks down and explains exactly what you do, which I really love. So I want to go into that again a little bit more. So your business, the work that you do is also based on a lot of the work in people's psyche. So explain this a bit, because we've spoken about this previously and it's really fascinating, and you have such a way with words, as I've said, and you explain it in a really clear way, and it's like, oh, that didn't occur to me, and oh wow, I didn't realize that was out there. So I love how your exploration really leads on to other people's. So yeah, tell us a bit more about the psyche.
Well, I think, the psyche or the subconscious, there's a few words like that, what they're ultimately all are is your soul. So psyche is it comes from ancient Greek. That's where the word originates from. And the ancient Greek word equivalent was actually meant breath, life, soul. Okay, so that's kind of what it meant. And yeah, the ancient Greeks knew a lot, they really did. But anyway, so it's kind of one and the same thing, really. But obviously people might refer to it as subconscious, or some people might refer to things as soul, some people refer to things as psyche. So I suppose to expand on that a little bit in relation with what I do, is that, I talked about the root of all your issues are in the non-physical. Well, what that actually means is our being as a whole is mind, body and soul. And, in today's kind of, modern life society, we're actually quite disconnected from that. So what that means is, and hence a lot of people do have a sense that something's missing, but the thing that's missing is those connections to the other aspects of your being, which are just as key a part of it as what you see in the physical. So the soul has become somewhat afflicted. It's almost like it's polluted. It's the soul is the element of water, and therefore it must flow. It needs to flow to stay healthy. A bit like if you see a stream and it's flowing, your dog can quite happily drink out of it, but the pool, what's not moving anywhere, is stagnant. Yeah.
Yes.
So a lot of our afflictions begin from the fact that we're not moving in the right way, and therefore the soul waters have become more stagnated, and we're holding on to things that we should be letting go of. And so it's an affliction of your soul, really. That's the beginnings of everything. So when I work with someone, it's that those, the key sort of parts of what creates ultimately the experience that person is having. Yes. It's like they just present to me. It's almost like they're there and I can read them, and in reading them I've acknowledged them, and in acknowledging it I can let it go for someone. So it sounds really weird, doesn't it? But
it's fascinating, really fascinating.
And it is, it's incredible, when I think to some of my clients and the work that we've done together, and how you know, where they were when we started and where they are after putting that sort of time in. It's just, you know, every day is fascinating, because every day there's something new that comes to me what I think, wow, that's incredible, you know? I didn't, you know, so that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So I mean, I suppose expanding from that bit, as well as the work I do with people, things come to me all the time, so I can ask about anything, and the answers are always there for me, you know, always. And so so I get a lot of information coming in constantly.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it's kind of like, I suppose it's like I have a conversation with something, you know, so I can explore something. So I have books and books and books full of what I call the deeper truths of humanity and the human condition, and, you know, where we came from, what's it all about, life, everything, existence, and the universe. And so it's just comes to me, and I just write it. Some of them are 65 pages long, some are shorter. And so that's a kind of a big part of what I do. So I tend to work with people part-time, but then the rest of my time is working on other stuff. Obviously, I mentioned that I'm putting together a book from that as well, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I spend a lot of my time on that as well. So that's a little bit sort of out there, and but yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is really interesting. I'm glad that you mentioned that you're writing a book. So is your book going to be based on the research that you've kind of gathered, or the things that have come to you, or how is it? What's the book on? Tell us about the book.
Okay, so the book is The True Theory of Everything.
Wow.
Okay? So, you know, just a, you know, not too meaty a title, of course. No, it's The True Theory of Everything. And it just, you know, as I said, things just sort of come to me. So what that actually means is that, you know, the truth of our existence, of what we are, where we came from, you know, all these kind of big questions, the answer doesn't lie in one place or another place. So for instance, the answer to what is the universe doesn't lie with science.
Yes.
You know, so it's almost like there's pieces of the puzzle which are sitting in different areas. And what I'm kind of feeling is that it's about bringing all those pieces together to create the full picture, which then describes the theory of everything. Yeah. So so the key, I'll tell you what the areas are. So there's 13 sort of key areas which will be part of the book. So there's evolutionary biology is one, spirituality is one, mathematics, cosmology, religion, mythology, personality, Bible, quantum mechanics, mating, theoretical physics, and the body and the elements. So those are kind of the areas. Each one of those areas kind of divides into sort of 7 key areas within that as well.
Okay.
And then each of those 7 areas splits into 3 key areas. So there's quite a lot of depth to it. So God knows how long it'll take.
Well, I look forward to the end product. That sounds, again, I think the word fascinating, I don't want to overuse it, but it's so, it feels like the right word. So I think that you really captured me when you said that things don't just come from one place. I think that, I love that that's what you've found, because I think that with the nutritional work that we do, like looking at how businesses can thrive, looking at how like eco communities, all of they can survive and like prosper, it's all about everything coming together rather than it being one leader, one main source. I look forward to that. That's really interesting.
So it's almost like, you know, the deeper truths are in multiple areas, and then if you drill down into like where you just said, we already kind of know that the answers aren't just in one place. You know, that's a holistic approach. That's looking at all angles, isn't it, really? So while you you know, while you're only looking at, so for instance, in science, there's always the big unanswered questions that they can't quite get to. So the paradox, they all have their paradoxes, but ultimately that's because they can't reach the deeper truth at the bottom, because the deeper truth isn't necessarily just sitting in one area. You have to, you know, you have to take something from somewhere else to actually deliver that deeper truth. So so where there's another question, you're not at the truth yet. And hence that's why things like coaching have drilling down, don't they? Drilling down, well, why? Well, why? That's why children ask why and drive you crazy, because until they feel that they've got to the truth at the bottom of their question, they will keep hounding you for the why. Yeah. So you know, everything we are is a reflection of what plays out in our bigger picture.
Wonderful. I love that. I think that is really just astounding. And I think that book is going to really change a lot of people's way of looking at things and way of interacting, how they consider things, and just how they go into a situation, really, because people will be more open-minded, more welcoming to new areas of life, more just I think it will just open up for a lot of people and a lot of answers. And yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, there's so much out there we don't know. So every day is just, you know, I wake up every morning, and obviously I have my clients planned in or whatever, but other than that, I don't know where the day is going to take me. So every day is an adventure, really. But yeah, that's amazing. But that's what, you know, your journey forward towards your potential is the unknown path. It's not the path you've traveled before. So therefore, you know, a willingness to embrace the unknown, yes, and to not try and define that before you take a step is really important. Because, you know, the unknown, your potential, if you define it, you limit it. So therefore, it's about embracing that unknown path and thinking, well, I'm just going to step forward here and see where it takes me. I don't need to have the answers yet. That's part of the journey, because that's evolving, that's evolution. And evolution is change. It's a process of change. So to want to know exactly what it is and nail that down right from the off, just completely restricts where you're going. So
nice. Nice. So something else I want to discuss with you is you mentioned when people kind of have blockages within their psyche, it can bring about circumstances that they are kind of already expecting, or already have experienced because of their outlook, even though it might not necessarily be something that they want to go through or want to come into their situation. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so I suppose you know, most people will have a kind of an awareness of this sort of thing to an extent, because we all are maybe aware of our own patterns of behaviour.
Yes.
Yeah. And also we all maybe kind of have heard of beliefs, you know, having beliefs kind of thing. But actually it's so much deeper than that. There's so much more sort of going on than that. So so your patterns of behaviour come directly from, you know, the pollution, as I described it, in the psyche, soul, non-physical. So what I refer to them as pathways, and everything's circular in nature. So it's an experience you go around, if that makes sense. So obviously, if you notice you're in something again, you don't just stay in it ongoing. At some point, you'll come out of it, and then at some point, you'll drop into, you know, whatever negative thing that is again. But that's because it is a cycle. So and I forgot what your question was now. What was it again, Sharon?
No, that's okay. It's about people bringing about the same experiences, the same like cyclical experiences when they don't necessarily mean to.
Yeah. So okay, so your soul is actually okay. Well, if you go back to mind, body, soul, okay, your mind is more of a, and your mind isn't your brain. It's something different. Your mind is a non-physical aspect of your being. But your mind is what propels being forward down the unknown path. Okay, so it's more sort of focused on that unknown path, and the reason it can see the unknown path is because your mind holds a record of every experience your soul has ever had. So it can almost like cross-check and see the unknown path. then as you're moving forward down that, your soul is about casting out, and it's touching and it's feeling and it's sensing and it's exploring every step of the way, so that it can understand, and in understanding it can comprehend where it is now and what it is now. And then after doing that, it should let go of that experience. But when you see, if someone, say, has a, you know, they're strong in failure energy, which can paralyze someone. If they believe they're going to fail, they find it very hard to move forward and do something new or things like that. Or if they do, it's a very painful process. Then that experience is still held in the non-physical, and therefore it hasn't been let go of. So what happens? Your soul doesn't know good from bad, right from wrong. It will see the residue of that experience, and it will keep following it, and that is how it repeats, kind of thing. So yeah, so it might all sound a bit weird and wonderful for some, but but yeah, it's but when you really start to, it's a complex thing to kind of explain in a nutshell, but I hope I'm giving you a bit of an idea at least. But yeah, but when you really start to get to grips with this, you start to see it for yourself. And when you can disconnect from, oh, I'm a failure, and instead start to think, oh gosh, I can feel some of my failure stuff triggering, you can step out of it so much more quickly. Yeah, it's rather than, you know, this is me, it's, well, this is not me. It's kind of, you know, the pollution in my psyche, and whether I choose to engage with it fully or not, I do have a choice on that. It's really powerful. You can kind of you can really change stuff up for yourself. So
that must be so empowering for the clients that you work with. That just what you've said, that must really change.
It is, because when I work with people, you know, the pollution, as I refer to it as, the pathway pollution, you know, that goes back from kind of the beginning of humanity, somewhere way back there. So I can't possibly work with someone and clear everything that they might possibly be connected to. But what I see my role is to get them to a stable point, and also as we're doing that journey, their understanding is kind of growing and developing, and then we get to a stable point where they've got it. They've got it, and if anything sort of triggers them, they know exactly what's going on. They can diffuse it, they can step out of it. They might not always, but they're in a position where they can create something more positive in their life and move forward from there. So, because once you've kind of cleared stuff down for people, so say if I, you know, over the course of their journey, they're massively strong in failure stuff, or you know, or inferior, or whatever that is, and eventually we root that out, then it's almost like, okay, the clock starts now, and then a different experience can start to unfold from them from that point. I mean, I still get clients messaging me, you know, 8 months after they finished, saying, oh my God, things are just getting better and better, and you know, I just don't have this anymore, don't think about this anymore. I can, you know, I'm getting more confident. It's still moving and changing. So yeah, so that's kind of, you know, my aim when I work with someone.
Wonderful. So when someone typically comes to work with you, what do they typically come to work with you? Is it based on? Is it like anxiety, or what type of things?
It's gosh, all kinds of stuff really. All my business comes through referral. So yeah, so they've usually, you know, somebody's usually, you know, told them about, you know, their stuff and how they're feeling better or whatever. So yeah, I get a lot of people who have anxiety. It might not be their main problem, but anxiety is quite you know, a lot of people have anxiety. But that can take many different forms as well, and it can also be coming from many different places. So anxiety can be quite a simple thing to root out, but it can also be quite a complicated thing with multiple drivers behind it. So, you know, everyone's different in that sense. So yeah, anxiety, you know, depression, fibromyalgia, you know, arthritis, other chronic pain conditions, or it could be that someone's come to me because they're they feel miserable about themselves, they can't say no, they have no confidence, or some people come because they've got a phobia, they just want to work on something specific, like, well, I've got this phobia, it's ruining my holidays or whatever that is. So yeah, the reasons can be quite different. Or some people come because they just feel stuck in some way, they feel this stuckness, and they can't, they've done the work, they know their stuff, they've got the ideas, but they just can't seem to get moving on it. So it can be something quite unspecific as well, but ultimately I can pinpoint it, whatever it is, so it's fine, so it's quite diverse. And I work with quite a few children now as well, which wasn't a route I was wanting to take, but because I work with parents who've had their own experiences, they then start to notice certain things that their kids might be struggling with. So if I work with children under sort of 15, 16, I work through the mother, actually, so, which is good.
Oh, well,
it would be a bit hard for a kid to sit there and have one of my sessions. It would make no sense to them whatsoever. So that's been quite interesting, actually, because children are quite quick to shift as well, so the parents usually see things starting to move and change quite quickly.
Wow.
They're not as used to traveling their pathways. So.
Nice. Oh, well, thank you for joining us today. My final question is, how can people get in touch with you?
The best way is to phone me or text me, something like that. I have an email. Do you want me to say what that is? Or
I can pop it above if you want to share it, you can.
Yeah, well, it's Lisa Hyland18 at btinternet.com, and my number 07809 244 922. So usually people drop me an email or they drop me a text, and then I'm always happy to have a chat with someone first, because if I think when you have a chat with someone, you get the opportunity to connect with someone, and they can really get a feel of whether you're the right person for them at that time, and because you want someone to feel comfortable with who you're going to be working with. That's important, obviously, and then I can explain it a bit more, because, as I said, they usually come via referrals, and one thing a lot of my clients say is, I find I just can't explain it. They find it hard to put into words what I do. Another reason I was trying to develop something really simple. So I always say, well, just tell them about your journey. That's all they need, well, it's worked for me, and this is how things have changed, and that's kind of good enough. So I'm always happy to have those chats and just explain a bit more.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you take care.
Thanks for having me. It's flown by, actually. I was thinking, how long is this going to be? But I could talk forever, though, about this stuff, because it fascinates me. But thank you for having me, Shannon.
Thank you. Bye.